It's 6 months since a television expose revealed the shocking existence of Filipino children trapped in adult jails. Images of children behind bars with pedophiles and other criminals were broadcast around the world. Reporter Chris Rogers has returned to the Philippines and reports that little has changed.
This is a cell full of broken lives and broken promises. When we exposed this abuse 6 months ago, the Philippine authorities pledged swift action. Here we found young faces are still behind bars, hungry, exhausted and terrified. We were shown the ongoing abuse posing as aid workers. Incredibly, the warden allowed us to film. This is possibly the worst form of child imprisonment I've seen so far. Children stacked on shelves like farm animals, I suppose. And it's unbearably hot in here. The roof is made out of steel with the burning sun beating down on it hour after hour. You can imagine how hot it gets throughout the day. It's only about 10 in the morning. Imagine how hot it's going to be later in the day. I don't know how these children bear it. I really don't. We were told the government ordered wardens to separate children from adult inmates, but this tiny cell is the only alternative here. I felt like I was feeding caged animals. This is not the first time I've met 13-year-old Carlo. Last year we filmed him in another jail. He'd been there 3 months. Eventually he was released. Now he's back behind bars, this time accused of stealing a bucket of fish. He told me they're allowed out of this cell to exercise for just 1 hour a week. It was relatively easy to expose the horrors of this jail. I was told it could be worse elsewhere. But with camera equipment banned in other prisons, getting proof wasn't going to be easy. We had to come up with an elaborate plan. Despite all the risks, we just have to get inside these jails. We might be able to use the camera we had last time, but it's unlikely. Even mobile phones have been confiscated now. So the cameraman Tony is armed with a hidden camera, and it's by using this we hope to reveal what it is the authorities are trying to hide. Still posing as charity workers, we now risk certain arrest, breaching the security designed to hide child prisoners from the outside world. No cameras, not even a cell phone. The number of young hands reaching out for help was overwhelming. Girls are rarely found in prisons. They tend to turn to prostitution rather than petty crime. But we discovered 12-year-old Sarah, accused of shoplifting. She told me the female cell door is left open and male prisoners have harassed her. It would cost her parents a month's wage to bail her out. She faces weeks here, possibly months. Despite the risk of being recognised, I wanted to return to the jails we visited last year. Back then, behind these walls, we discovered children sharing a cell with 2 sexual offenders. They told us they had a special relationship with the boys. 6 months on, those special relationships continue. Do you look after the children? Do you look after the children?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. I see.
Also vision in the my friends.
Oh, I see.
I like inmates too.
One of his inmates is 12-year-old Reggie, the latest arrival, charged with stealing a necklace. Absolutely nothing has been done to keep the adult inmates away from the children. Reggie's been told his first court hearing is weeks away. Then we visited the jail where last July we filmed This Hell on Earth. As a result, the children were ordered to be moved, and the prison governor was sacked. His replacement refused to take us to the cells and kept us waiting in the courtyard. He had good reason to. Child prisoners are being held here again, now issued with prison uniform. Convinced I was a genuine aid worker, the governor started telling me about my own investigation. And is it still crowded? Yes. The government have made empty promises before. A decade ago, they offered child prisoners a lifeline, the Juvenile Justice Bill. If made law, up to 4,000 children would be released, sentenced to rehabilitation rather than punishment. But it never materialised. Now, children's rights campaigners say our investigation has put the bill back on the political agenda.
The report was terrific, and it woke up the conscience of the politicians in the Senate, and they dusted off the bill and brought it to the floor, and within 2 months they had it approved. And there's a huge step forward after 9 years. Of course, in the past they had no interest whatsoever in the children in prison.
The bill will be a bold move and faces a drawn-out voting process. While the political wrangling continues, so will the imprisonment of children and the efforts to hide them from the outside world. Chris Rogers, ITV News, the Philippines.
Well, in a statement to ITV News, the Philippines government says it, quote, notes with deep concern the reports of the plight of Filipino children and wishes to assure that it has worked and continues to work for their betterment.
Since the middle of last year, we've been reporting on the thousands of children in the Philippines locked away in adult prisons. Now, despite assurances from court officials that changes were made, ITN's Chris Rogers said in a report we aired yesterday that the problem is as bad as ever. Here now is the second part of his report on a former victim of that system. Some viewers may find this report disturbing.
6 months ago, we found 13-year-old Edwin imprisoned in an adult jail for stealing a necklace. We were there the moment a local charity freed the child prisoner into their care, and he took his first steps to freedom. Edwin no longer wakes to a day of abuse and misery. There are no overcrowded cells at the Prada Care Centre. He is a far cry from the broken boy we found in jail last year, although he still bears the physical scars of prison life. In the last year, the charity has won custody of more than 100 children like Edwin. Here, they are rehabilitated, not punished.
All right, boys, lalakad na tayo. Time for session sa ano. Okay? Diretso sa ano ha.
These children were once written off as street vermin and thrown into a college of crime. Edwin can now read, write and use a computer for the first time in his 13-year life. He's also learning how to come to terms with his tormented past. This is Edwin last year, sobbing as he's encouraged to reflect on months of prison abuse. This special therapy is designed to help the children let go of the past by letting out their fears and emotions. 6 months on, Edwin no longer sobs when he looks back at life behind bars. He told me a male prisoner tried to abuse him.
I think he had a knife. I could feel it digging in my ribs. When I refused, he made me pick up poo that was in the bucket. Then he said, if you don't let me have you, I will kill you.
This is the place Edwin once called home. At first sight, it's obvious how and why children fall into crime. We tracked down his family, who still live dangerously close to a fully functioning rail line. An entire community is saturated in poverty here. This is where Edwin was beaten on the head by police with their guns and snatched away from his family. That was 9 months ago. Now the man who rescued him, Prader's father Cullen, is taking him home. But Edwin's mother wants him to stay with Prader for what she believes will be a better life.
He will have a good future. He can stay at Prada, we'll send him to school, and we'll see that he's really okay for the future. And his family. We will be giving help to the family as well.
Just 2% own the land, property and wealth of the Philippines. The other 98% have absolutely nothing. Edwin is just one child out of millions across the country who now has a real chance of breaking away from life in the slums. He is a symbol of abuse and freedom, a child of hope and courage. His plight should shame a government that, despite so many promises, continues to lock thousands of children behind bars. Chris Rogers, ITV News, Manila.
Well, after CNN aired this, we invited the Philippine government to comment. We had first discussed the treatment of child prisoners in the Philippines with the country's Justice Secretary last year.